From the Grayman Briefing, this is a summary of recent developments regarding the Second Amendment, cybersecurity, protests, supply chain disruptions, national security, law and order, free speech, censorship, government oversight, and more. Now, the latest from GraymanBriefing.com. Here's this week's Sword, read out by Super Essie.
This week, we're looking at major developments, including AT&T ending U.S. landline services by 2029, with California opting out. The fiscal year 2025 National Defense Act bans gender dysphoria medical surgeries for minors and CRT in military education while freezing DEI roles. Civil unrest escalated nationwide with protests disrupting major events. The U.S. faces beef supply shortages. There are labor strikes and drone-related security concerns, including RUMINT, that the government is hunting for a nuke or dirty bomb in New Jersey. Also, Ontario threatened to cut U.S. energy supplies over tariffs. And separately, the Syrian regime collapses. Let's start today with communication and infrastructure. AT&T will discontinue traditional landline phone services across the U.S. by 2029. The transition will focus on wireless services and fiber optic networks, aiming to reach 50 million locations within 5 years. A 5-year notice has been issued to 100 million customers in 21 states to prepare. However, California rejected the phase-out as landlines are classified as a, quote, carrier of last resort, providing contingency less vulnerable to cyber attacks. The Premier of Ontario threatened to retaliate against U.S. tariffs by disrupting energy supplies from the Enbridge pipeline system. Pipeline transports 60% of crude oil imports to the U.S., primarily serving Wisconsin, New York, and Michigan, which were specified by the Premier. The Premier warned Canada is ready for a, quote, fight over the issue when the new administration takes office. Moving into government oversight, the U.S. House passed FY25 NDAA, authorizing military funding and introducing provisions. These include prohibiting TRICARE from covering medical, what they call treatments, for gender dysphoria in minors, and banning CRT, or critical race theory, in military institutions. The bill also freezes new diversity, equity, and inclusion positions and prevents climate-focused initiatives like requiring zero-emission vehicles for office travel. Supporters claim the bill restores military focus on lethality, while opponents criticize it as politically driven. Moving on, a House Judiciary Committee report alleges federal agencies under the Biden administration unlawfully collaborated with financial institutions to access private financial data of the citizens without legal processes. Following January 2021's events on January 6th, the FBI and Treasury Department encouraged banks to scrutinize accounts and file suspicious activity reports, or SARs. The report raises privacy concerns over expanding financial surveillance using digital IDs and AI technologies. The U.S. House passed the Crucial Communism Teaching Act, or the CCTA, mandating a high school curriculum to educate students on communism's dangers and its contrast with U.S. democratic principles. The act emphasizes communism's historical death toll and its ongoing global threats. Moving now into civil unrest. In New York City, pro-Palestinian protesters blocked the Macy's Thanksgiving parade, resulting in 25-plus arrests. Similar protests disrupted Black Friday shopping in Dallas and other cities. In Washington, D.C., LGBT activists occupied women's restrooms on Capitol Hill, protesting gender-based bathroom policies, basically policies that say men should use men's bathrooms and women should use women's bathrooms. President-elect Trump announced plans to pardon January 6th rioters or protesters and halt ongoing prosecutions against them. Protests for justice for Jordan in New York City escalated to altercations and detentions, with many leaders calling for vigilante action. Recent drone activity near New Jersey has prompted claims from Representative Van Drew that Iran launched a mothership off the U.S. East Coast. The Pentagon refuted these claims, stating no Iranian ships were present. Meanwhile, a Chinese national was arrested for operating a drone over Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. Authorities discovered drone images and researchers in Zhu's devices, that's the suspect, and he faces up to 4 years in prison for violating the airspace. Trump initially called for the drones to be shot down, the ones over near New Jersey. He later made announcements that the president and the government is aware of them, and they're likely U.S. federal government drones or aircraft. Otherwise, he presumed they would be shot down. Let's take a look at some RUMINT on this topic. The following is unverified and unconfirmed rumor intelligence. So please note that before I read this out. I'm just going to read a small portion of this from the Grayman briefing. If you want to read the whole thing, go to graymanbriefing.com and sign up. Let's begin. Assessments of the recent drone sightings in multiple states, primarily New Jersey, indicate that the UAP are U.S. government-operated aircraft being used to locate a possible radiological threat, such as a dirty bomb or suitcase nuclear device or a missing nuke. The analysis is based on flight patterns and elevations consistent with Arduino and LAMP, the lack of government information, so as not to alarm the public, and the lack of government response, meaning no need to respond to UAPs as they are not the threat. This assessment, if correct, would mean that the government has, with high confidence, intelligence that a nuclear device has been assembled or smuggled into the area of New Jersey. It could be held in a staging area meant to be relocated at a later time. And we're going to stop here. Again, if you want to hear the rest or read the rest of this, go to graymanbriefing.com. Moving now into terrorism, on December 4th, a 56-year-old man posed as a grandparent to enter a California school, opening fire during a kindergarten recess. 2 students, ages 5 and 6, were critically injured. The suspect, who died by suicide, left a note claiming the attack was retaliation for U.S. actions in the Middle East. Now moving into the supply chain. The U.S. cattle herd has declined to its lowest level since 1961, primarily due to droughts, wildfire, and water shortages. Analysts project a significant drop in beef supply over the next 2 years, with cattle harvest expected to decline by over 1 million head between 2024 and 2025. Beef prices have risen 17% since the beginning of 2024, driven by reduced domestic supply and strikes at key ports disrupting imports. Now moving on, Canada's Post, this is their postal service, their month-long strike involving 55,000 workers reportedly was supposed to end on December 17th. The strike caused major delays during the Christmas season. Operations were set to resume with a backlog and a 5% wage increase retroactively applied until May 2025, when we may see this again. Amazon workers at facilities in New York and Georgia are preparing to strike over safety concerns and wage disputes. Now let's shift into the Second Amendment. The New York State Police removed the requirement for a state-issued ID to apply for a concealed carry permit. However, state law still mandates applicants to file within their county of residence, effectively preventing non-residents from applying. In Canada, another 324 firearms have been added to a ban, bringing the total to over 2,000 since May of 2020. Their public safety minister described these firearms as military weapons, unsuitable for civilian use. Canada is exploring donating some of the prohibited firearms to Ukraine for use against Russia. Shifting into global conflict, the Syrian regime, the government there, collapsed after the HTAS and the Syrian National Army seized Damascus. Now shifting into cybersecurity, CISA has issued advisories on hardware vulnerabilities in Schneider Electric, Hitachi Energy, and Philips Hue products. These flaws could enable attackers to gain access, execute arbitrary code, or disrupt services. Critical sectors such as healthcare, energy, water treatment, and communications are at risk. CISA recommends immediate implementation of technical mitigations to protect infrastructure. Apple's latest iOS update automatically reboots iPhones after 3 days of inactivity, disrupting law enforcement's ability to access locked devices. While this change enhances privacy for stolen or lost phones, it poses challenges for users who keep their devices inactive for backup or emergency purposes, and obviously it impacts police officers' ability to investigate crimes. Let's look at legal updates now. Daniel Penny was acquitted of all charges. Manhattan jury found Penny not guilty of criminally negligent homicide after dropping a manslaughter charge due to a deadlock. The U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments on Tennessee's law banning gender-affirming surgeries and treatment for minors. Conservative justices supported the ban, citing insufficient medical data, while liberal justices questioned discrimination concerns. A decision is expected by June of 2025, and it could influence similar state laws. And a natural disaster over in California, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake hit 60 miles southwest of Ferndale. It triggered a tsunami warning all the way from Davenport up to Oregon. Officials warned of dangerous flooding, but no damage or injuries were reported. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening, and as always, remain aware, be vigilant, and stay safe.
Get unredacted, real-time briefings sent via email and through the Telegram and Signal apps by joining the Grayman Briefing.